Okay, we are live.
Live.
This is episode. What episode is this?
I don't know.
I want to say it's 13 now. Yeah, I think it's 13.
Okay. All right.
Episode 13.
Well, let's start. So looking at the last week's news, a big thing. I mean, I'm just going to go straight in for it, you know. And I don't know if you've seen this. This is like breaking news as well. So is Trump and the United States gonna invade another country? Are they going to invade Venezuela? Have you seen that?
I have not seen this. No.
You not seen that?
No.
Yeah.
How have I missed
Trump's
it?
got his big boy pants on, and that may be what's happening. So there's a lot of similarities with the Iraq War with this. So I saw something earlier that it was saying, literally, even sometimes word for word, they were using the same things, sort of like the scare tactics. Because when you invade a country, I think whether you're United States or anyone, you kind of need to put a pretense in. You kind of need to say why we're going to be invading without saying you're going to be invading. And so this is a country at the top of South America, and it's got a leader in charge, which ultimately the United States don't like. And so they want to overthrow that leader. Donald Trump has been in charge of essentially murdering the drug mules on their way on their boats supposedly from Venezuela to American shores, with drugs and all sorts of bad people, bad things. And what the United States have done is they've just shot them out the water and killed them all. And there's huge call to if that's illegal, if that's right. There was even one time, I think, a couple of weeks back, where they destroyed the boat, and the people were clamoring on the boat, and then they went in for another wave and killed them. They just murdered them, basically. When you got the drugs are gone and everything like that, and it's kind of like, well, what even evidence do you have that they are drugs, that they are transporting these drugs? Because without that, you're just killing them, right? So there's been a lot of fire on that. There's a lot of United States military presence on the shores. Just as similar to the Russian army being out just outside of Ukraine before they did an invasion. You can't just go press a button and invade a country. You've got to have a build up of military presence outside the country, and just the military presence itself can be enough to trigger that conflict as well. Because you're kind of forcing your enemy to do something. There's a sort of a bit of a provoking without even provoking. So that is a big thing that's happening. They've just taken an oil tanker, which is I think quite a big thing. It's the oil tanker will be worth millions and millions of dollars, and they've taken it by force, and just like with the Iraq War, there is obviously that there's that theme of why is the United States really doing this? Is it drugs or is it more about oil? So when you look at Venezuela, I think they've got the largest deposits of oil that they're not utilizing, So that's that. I'm just looking at that. Yeah, so they're a bit more, I think, authoritarian. The leader is Maduro, and he's called for peace with the United States. But I think if I was in his shoes, I'd be doing the same thing. So yeah.
something I've just noticed is, just looking at this as well, typically the capital cities are quite inland. Venezuela, it's not. It's very. In fact, all of the cities are very far to very close to the coast, which I could imagine would work very favourably if the US did want to invade, because they actually don't need to go very inwards. You know, there's not a lot of fighting. It's a very much get in kind of situation.
Well, I think what they want to do as well is they want the people to overthrow. So they want to destabilize the country enough that the people overthrow their own leaders, which is, I think, a bit of a common sort of tactic. So yeah, I think that's the first bit of news. It is breaking with the oil tanker being seized, and I would assume that this is going to be moving quite quickly now. So by the next time our podcast comes out, there'll probably be a bit more news about that, or when you're listening, there might be a bit more on it. But yeah, Trump is doing whatever he's doing what he's doing. Cool.
Interesting one.
What do you want to bring up?
Well, coming back to England from across the pond, I can say that now, can't I?
You can.
Talk a little bit about the recent debate that happened in Parliament. So they recently debated the digital ID situation, which is quite good because, you know, usually they have these debates which are started from online petitions or whatever. And usually, there's a debate, but not really much of a debate. But this one was apparently packed. So packed they had to turn people down trying to get in. Right? And as you could imagine, it was a complete slaughter for Labour. And for specific...
Was it?
Well, here's the thing. I say Labour, but really...
Was it to vote it through?
No, it's to vote... Well, most people were voting against. And when I mean most, I mean we're talking pretty much every party. The SNP was there. The Reform was there. Conservatives were there.
But Labour's got the majority in the House anyway, so even if everyone else...
Well, here's the next part. So were a lot of Labour backbenchers.
Right.
They were against it as well.
Okay. Did they actually vote on it, or were they there just to discuss it?
It was a debate. Sorry, there was no vote. I didn't mean to say vote.
Okay.
But they were debating it. And, it was, from what I've seen of it, it does seem that, Keir Starmer's about the only person that wants it currently. It's pretty...
Well, they've still got the majority in the whole, and they've got the whip, etc. So if they wanted to, they could get the majority of their MPs in line. I'm sure. So
maybe
it will go through and it'll happen. And they've got such a big majority. I mean, even if the bulk of the backbenchers, if the backbenchers didn't like it, I think they probably would, as they've shown with the welfare bill over the summer, they have a lot of power to the backbenchers, and I think they know that now. They know that Keir Starmer is weak, and I don't think they mind defying him. So maybe, but then again, maybe you got to pick your battles, and this isn't one that they want to pick. I think so. Most are probably broadly in favour of it. I mean, we could do a podcast on this in itself. It's because I know we've got our opinions on it, and it's a huge kind of. I think it gets the sort of bones almost of what is going on in this country now with the lack of freedom of speech. And people getting locked up for memes and hurty words.
For hurty words.
I love that phrase. And so obviously this is an ID card which is rumoured to ultimately to go further with eroding, I guess, the common man right and their freedom. So, you won't be able to do hardly anything without someone knowing about it. And there's, I guess it's they can do things with banking and all those sorts. But to be honest with you, I'm not against it as much as most people on probably my side of the kind of political spectrum would be. I just don't believe it'll be against our freedoms that much. Not so much. I mean, look, if you don't have a bank account right now, you're pretty screwed. You know, there's not much you can't do without a bank account. It's like, you know, the people that go around that only want to deal in cash, you know, and they hate the whole cashless society. They think it's a conspiracy theory. I don't know if you're on this path as well, because a lot of people are, where, you know, they believe that once cash is gone, then the government have got so much more control and all that kind of stuff. I mean, to a certain extent, yes, because obviously it's harder to declare things if you're paying in cash, but it's so much more convenient. I mean, I know for me and all my businesses, you know, I only accept card, I only accept transfers. I don't want to be handling cash. It's just, and you speak to businesses and it's the same thing, you know, they don't want to be dealing with cash. It's too much pissing about. It's too much costs dealing with cash, counting it, you know, making sure it can't be stolen. And it's just, you know, if everything's digital, it does make things a lot easier. And with the digital ID, it's the same thing. It's just, I think it's just kind of modernizing. But maybe I don't know enough about it. Maybe there's more about it that is just going beyond what I'm saying. And what I'm saying is I'm happy with it going digital. You know, maybe I won't have a passport, you know, in the future. Maybe I'll just have a digital ID that scans my fingerprint or whatever, you know, and that's good enough for me. So I don't mind it, you know, and we use our face to get into our iPhones. You know, I mean, what's the bloody difference, right?
I think the problem is it had potential, but how they sold it was a lie. I think it's very.
How did they sell it?
They sold it as a thing that will stop illegal immigration, illegal working.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But they were probably trying to ride that wave, right?
Yeah,
but I get it, and it will to a certain extent, right?
I agree. Because if you think about it logically...
I did say to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. You did say something. So, and to a certain extent, I can see that, you know, for like delivery, if you think of like Deliveroo and delivery services like that, I don't know what you need to do that as a job. I think
you need to be a British citizen or have the right to work, and you need to send those papers. But I think the problem with those is it's too easy to just, you know, let's say it's all on your phone, the app and everything to do your work is all on the phone. You just give that phone to your illegal immigrant friend, right? And then he pretends to be you. And there's nothing else that can stop that, right? So, you know, and the same thing with like cab drivers or whatever, right? So if you got a taxi and you've done everything legally and it's got your name on it and whatever, it's got your picture, well, what's to stop your illegal immigrant friend jumping into the taxi? And because there's a name for that, actually, I think.
Fraud?
Well, yes. But there's a specific name for this. But and the same thing happens with the Deliveroos and stuff. So when one person's shifts finish, another person's shift starts, right? And they're using the same account, but they're just illegal people. But how do you stop that? I don't know. And I guess the thing is the argument against this is if you are a legal immigrant, you're not going to be taking the legal means anyway, right? You'd be doing it legal, just like this is, right? So, you know, you've Uber Eats or whatever it is, or Uber has done its due diligence on its individual, but then they just pass that to the illegal immigrant friend. How can you stop that? You know, I mean, what's it going to be? Each time they go to a door, they've got to scan, and I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know. So it can maybe hammer the good people, as most of the time the government do. They seem to be able to they're good at hammering the good people and not very good at hammering the bad people. But I just hope it will make it easier, because buying a house and doing all these legal stuff, I deal with that all the time. If there is a digital way of doing it, I'm on board for it. I don't know the details, and I would argue most people don't know the details. Most people have probably seen someone talking out their arse on a podcast or whatever, and
That's not us.
yeah, that's not us. And maybe maybe getting the wrong end of the stick. It's very easy, I think, to whip this up to be, they're out to get us, the blob and all that. I haven't seen enough evidence to support that. Basically,
Yeah,
I've just seen and heard a lot of hearsay, and what it could lead to, as opposed to what it is.
the thing is that's
Which maybe is enough on its own.
yeah. I mean, that's my fear really. Is what does it lead to? I mean, do I think Labour would do anything with it? No, but 20 years down the line, if we have a party that has those in play, that's more authoritarian than we've ever seen,
maybe.
what happens then? And maybe it is a question of them, because England's always been very against digital IDs or a centralised ID. Tony Blair tried to do it, didn't work, and did in 2010.
Technology is much better now as well. So, and we're so much used to that in our lives, doing so many things digitally. It always makes me laugh as well when kind of people poo-poo certain, I don't know, like the COVID vaccine and that kind of stuff. It's like, well, you'd be popping pills on the weekend or whatever, and it's the same people are saying that they won't have that. It's just like, come on, I'm very much anti those conspiracy theories. I don't really. They need to make sense. The same sort of people who think that the world's flat. And it's just like, come on. But at the same time, I don't blindly listen and believe the government either.
It's a bit of an interesting one. I mean,
but you're against them, aren't you?
Digital IDs, yeah.
Yeah.
But then also, there's one more thing we haven't talked about, and that's the safety of it. There's not one thing that hasn't been hacked.
Yeah.
What's the idea of all of a sudden we have this unpenetrable digital ID? I mean, everyone's centralised details.
What about if someone hacks into our phones? We're screwed, aren't we? We're just gonna have a bit of faith in the government. All right. Okay. All right. All right. I think you win that argument, to be fair. Fair enough. The government can't be trusted. I do agree with that. They don't exactly spend the money wisely. I agree with that. And in fact, that leads us on to the next story, if I may.
Let me guess. COVID.
So right. So out of the maybe report that we spoke about last week. Now, I don't know. How old were you when COVID broke? 18. So maybe you weren't in it that much from a business point of view. I don't know. But me being in the business that I'm in, I thought it was absolutely crazy, the waste of money that the government was throwing to everyone. So firstly, you had bounce back loans, right? Now, bounce back loans was so first of all, they released a help for businesses, right? So during the COVID period, they recognised that these forced shutdowns, these lockdowns were causing businesses to go under, right? And they really didn't want that to happen. So they decided to issue these loans out, okay? And now these loans were offered by the banks, and they were backed up by the government. So it meant the banks were more likely to lend because it was backed up by the government, but they still had to do their due diligence, right? They start to make sure that they had to pay back in time and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
There was such a big delay in all that paperwork. They had loads of applications through. Loads of businesses were struggling. They were going to their banks in their masses and doing all these applications, and the banks couldn't cope with all these applications. So what they did was they said, look, majority of the people only need less than £50,000 because most of the applications coming in are from just small businesses. Okay, so the government said, okay, right. we're going to sort this. We're just going to make it one, like just a few sentences basically of COVID, it basically said, you know, are you affected by COVID? And if you are, then we can give you X amount of money, up to £50,000. And so what happened is that businesses up and down the country were doing this, and the banks just gave them the money, right? So there was very little questions asked, because obviously it was designed to be quick, right? It was designed to be quick. It was designed to give an instant cash injection to all these small businesses that were struggling during that time period. But of course, which was great, really. It was great for small businesses, and it worked really, really well. But the problem was it was open to fraud massively. You had people opening up businesses, taking out these loans, sending it to themselves, and closing the businesses. Right? You know?
It's like an unlimited money glitch.
Yeah, it really was. There was some high profile cases that was done done shortly afterwards, or even a year or two afterwards, where you had people literally had set up hundreds of businesses, right, and they were getting paid out, right? They were and millions and millions of pounds were sent to these, you know, bogus businesses. And then ultimately sent to an individual, and they did get prison time. Okay, but they were the people. The reason why those people got caught is because they were setting up hundreds of businesses, right, and doing it on a mass scale. There were loads more businesses where it was done on a very small scale, and that was the bounce back loans. Then there was furlough. People furloughing people, maybe, I don't know, that didn't exist or whatever. However you'd do that, or maybe, you know, you were looking to fire, or maybe, you know, whatever. But if put on furlough instead, you know, there's all sorts of reasons of maybe of why the furlough could cost. I mean, the furlough would have cost businesses and would have cost the government loads of money. Then there was the Eat Out to Help Out. Remember that?
Yep.
So that was Rishi Sunak's thing, I think. It's just basically, they thought it was kind of all over. They really wanted to support the hospitality sector. So I think it was basically mass buy one, get one free or something like that. It was.
It's like 50% off, wasn't it?
All of this, the bounce back loans, the furlough, the Eat Out to Help Out, and then there was probably more as well that I'm missing out. But all that, at the time, I thought was ridiculous. But I am a true conservative, okay? I believe that markets go up and down. And if businesses fall, so be it. If anything, it's a bit like burning down a bit of a forest. You know, it gives rise for new shoots, right? So if it meant that some big businesses fell down during this period, so be it. You know, I'm very much kind of cutthroat like that. Including small businesses, you know, if you didn't have enough reserve or whatever, maybe some could have had bespoke help, especially if they were in like, for example, a gym that was forced to close by the government. You know, maybe then I don't know, but I just think that the government gave way too much away, and as a true conservative, I was really annoyed at the government being conservative. They were leading this charge of just giveaways, right? Yeah. Anyway, this report says much of the £10.9 billion in taxpayers' money was lost in fraud and error. An error as well, you know? I mean, how much did they just send in error? In COVID support schemes is now beyond recovery. So they would have sent a lot more than that. But they think basically £11 billion of taxpayers' money has been lost to fraud and error, and they can't get it back. So, you know, a chunk of the money, like the example I gave earlier where they went to prison, they would have got back. But they might only got half of that back or whatever. You know, they would have spanked up the wall, half of it. So, again, I don't want this to be necessarily another government bashing podcast, but here we are. But this is conservative government, and I think it's important to state that. You know, we do a lot of bashing of Labour because they are the current they're currently in charge. But this was all done, and the Conservatives, and I think that's part of the reason as well why they're not in government anymore, because the Conservatives are meant to be the people that are careful with money. And I really lost my respect for the Conservative Party during COVID, both for their lack of freedom, and their massive waste of money. So,
I wasn't at the time. I was political, but I wasn't nearly as political. I didn't have the knowledge I have now, so I didn't really look at it too deeply. I definitely didn't know about kind of the buyback loans or anything like that.
Bounce back.
Sorry. So I do find it interesting though, and it is pretty horrific considering a lot of the problems that we have today were caused from COVID, and 11 billion of it being basically waste is that's
taxpayers'
massive.
money. Everyone that's paying tax.
Well, it's taxpayers' money and the rest. Bloody, how much did we borrow during that time? You know, we had to borrow loads, and people don't realise that half the reason the services are struggling as much as they are now is because we had to borrow. The government had to borrow massive loans, and at the time, interest rates were so low. We're talking what were they, like 0.1%, something like that, like really low percentage.
0.5, I think.
Yeah, 0.5%, which is nothing. And then all of a sudden,
it's free money.
Yeah, interest started to rise. The people that gave out the loans, great, but everyone else, the government had to make up. I mean,
it feels a bit of a trap, doesn't it? If you say, come borrow all this money, grow your business, build that extension, go out, buy that holiday or whatever. There's all this very cheap money, borrowing more money against your house. Interest rates are at all-time low. Yeah. And then a few years later, boom. Yeah. The interest rates go from 0.5 to, whatever they were, 6.5% at the highest or whatever. And it's just like, it's very easy to believe that something, deliberate was happening there. I don't think it was. I genuinely, when everyone ever criticises the government for being deliberately bad, I don't believe it. I just think they are genuinely that bad. Yeah. Which shouldn't really be that hard to believe. But a lot of things have stayed as well. A lot of the, I don't know, if you look at working from home, whilst a lot of people have come back to offices, a lot of people are still working from home. There's a lot of technology that has arisen from that time period of people. It kind of forced people to be digital, which I actually think was the trajectory anyway. Yeah. If you look at online auctions, obviously the industry that I'm in, of buying property, it was you could buy on auction online in those days, but it was really hard. Like, you had to do all this stuff and send things off, and just go there, and then it's actually happening. If you put your hand up, you bought it. But they had to evolve very well. They had to change very quickly to make sure that they could still function. Yeah. And so a lot of money was spent on digital services and that has stayed. No one goes to an auction anymore. Yeah. And that stayed. And that's the same thing, copy and paste across all industries. A lot of things done. You just look at Zoom. Or Teams or whatever, whatever services you want to use. And people are so easily, they're more than happy now to have a meeting online as opposed to in person. And before, it might have not meant so much, but now it's just so commonplace. Everyone's got the same software. Yeah. It's an easy thing.
And I think, interesting enough, there was probably a lot of... because of that kind of COVID situation, everyone getting digital, I think that's probably that was a massive boost for AI as well. I don't think AI would be nearly as big as it is today if it wasn't for that. And it's almost like during World Wars, the situations where technology takes leaps and bounds of improvements, doesn't it?
That's a very good point, Alex. They say that during World War II, technology just was rapid. Yeah. Absolutely, because it forces that to happen, doesn't it? It forces certain ways of doing things. Definitely. Have you got any more points? Anything else?
I have got one thing I want to talk about. Yeah. There's been a lot of talk recently about the European Union,
Yeah.
about Labour having talks of potentially rejoining.
Won't happen.
But
yes, I've heard that as well.
I personally don't think it will. I think if it does, the UK is going to get the most unfavourable terms ever.
Yeah.
But
arguably better than they are now, though. I think what they would say is, you've been a very bad boy, but you come back. I actually don't think that if we were to rejoin, I don't think they would hammer us that much. I think they're hammering us now, and we would be a poster to everybody else thinking of leaving, saying, look, if you leave, you'll just end up coming back. So what's the point? And you've wasted a lot of money in the meantime. Yeah. So I actually don't think they would, I don't think we would need to join the euro or anything like that, But yeah,
I don't see it. I don't see it happening either. The thing is, like, the EU, although we had a lot of trade deals at play and there was a lot of trade agreements, there was also a lot of rules that had to be abided by.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a lot of these rules still exist. Where I used to work, it's quite incredible. The regulation on finance, a lot of that regulation still exists, even though we're not in the EU. Mm. It's just embedded now, which I just some of it is just. Oh.
Well, we copied everything, literally copied and pasted everything initially, and then we started to move a little bit. I think the reason why there's a lot of talk about this is because people think. I think it's a very complex issue, to be honest. A big thing, obviously, is that if you're against Nigel Farage, if you're against reform, which is going to be the biggest challenge for all the parties at the next election, and what is the thing that they stood for is Brexit. Okay, so if you can show at the next election that Brexit was a bad thing, and pin all that blame on Nigel Farage, then there's some people that think that is the golden bullet, the silver bullet, whatever, the thing to get rid of Farage is to say, look, the mantle that you stood on to get to where you are is all been for nothing, and it's been a terrible experiment. And there's lots of things to point to that as well. There's a lot of backing. There's a lot of papers, a lot of things, a lot of things that can be pointed to now to say actually that leaving the EU, Brexit has caused the UK economy many billions, and it's been an overall bad thing for the country. There are a lot of evidence for that. There was a lot of pointers towards it. Even all the illegal crossings that we're getting now. There was an agreement that said that we could have put them back into the first country that they came to in the EU, which we won't be able to do that now, which we can't do that now. Even going on to sort of more the right wing of politics. And that's actually why quite a lot of people voted to leave the EU, was to control the borders. Okay? Yeah. So it's kind of gone against all that. And actually, the biggest immigrants that we get are outside of the EU anyway. Yeah. And that's gone up massively since we left the EU, which to me has got nothing to do with each other. But I mean, maybe there is some slight connotation, some alignment with it, because then we had to get the cheap labour from somewhere. If we weren't getting it from the EU, then we'd have to get it from further afield. So people from Western Africa, people from Pakistan, etc., are coming over more now because we can't get the people from the EU. Or people that live in the UK that are from the EU have gone back to those countries, and been replaced from people even further afield, even more so culturally different. So I think they're even trying to, in supporters of going back to the EU, they're even trying to sort of attract that anti-immigrant and the people that voted for Brexit. They're trying to get them on side by saying, look, actually, you thought you thought you were leaving the EU to have less immigrants, but what you've actually ended up is more immigrants. You were sold a lie, and that lie was sold to you by Nigel Farage. So don't vote for him at the next election, and join the EU. There's a lot of political kind of capital and opportunity when it comes to formally stating as a party that we're going to join the EU. There's no, at the moment, Labour and Conservatives and of course Reform are all saying that have no plans to join the EU.
Yeah.
Because it was a democratic vote, etc., and they're going to stick to it, and it wasn't done that long ago. Lib Dems, however, they've seen this this game, and they've gone, right, we need to put our flag somewhere, right? We need to we need to stand for something, because I don't know about you, but I don't think Lib Dems stand for bloody anything. So we're going to need to stand something. So they feel that there is an opportunity there. So they have said, we're going to join the EU. And it is something, I think, with the left of Labour as well, now that it's gaining a bit more traction, and they feel that there's a bit of political momentum there. And again, they feel like they need something, actually, because they are becoming a bit more relevant compared to the Greens. That they feel like they need something for the next election as well. And so there was that talk of joining the EU again. And it's been a little while. When was the election?
2016.
Sorry, when was the vote?
2016, wasn't it?
2016.
Or we left. Maybe we.
And so, but it's been a good. I think it's been five. It's been more than 5 years. Yeah, it's been about 8 years, isn't it? 8 years.
The vote was in June 2016.
2016. So it's 9 years. So 9 years ago we had the vote, and and it's been 5 years since we actually left. Now, obviously, the obvious question is, well, how long do you need to leave it before we can have another referendum, right? I don't know really how long. I kind of think if you keep asking the same question until you get the answer that you want, right? Is it really democratic? But at the same time, it's very democratic to keep asking the question. But a lot of people say, of course, there was a big age demographic, wasn't there, with the election? You would have been too young, I assume.
To vote, yeah, I was.
So a lot of younger people voted to remain.
Yep.
A lot of older people voted to leave.
Yeah.
And considering that was 9 years ago, a lot of old people are dead, right? That's a bit crass the way I put it. Have died since then, and there's that talk therefore that now that we've seen how bad it is, and there's a lot of evidence to show that, plus a lot of people that voted to leave has now died anyway. It would be a shoo-in, right? If we did the election now, I'm sure. I don't know if you look at some recent pollings, but it may well be that it's 60% to remain. I don't know. I voted to remain.
Yeah, I think. Do you know what's really funny about this vote when it happened was that it wasn't really I don't think it really mattered as much your political beliefs. I think the vote was a lot more because when you had Conservatives, Labour come together, and especially at that point in 2016. It really proved that this wasn't really about your political position. This wasn't if you're left, you're right, Labour or Lib Dems or whatever it was. This was about what do we think is the best move for the future. And I think economically, we should have remained. Are we then pushing problems into the future? Yeah, you could argue we might have been. But at the same point, there was no real basis to leaving. It was a very racist vote, whether you like it or not. It was a very, I don't like the people in this country. I want them to go. But no one really thought about that much. No one really thought about, okay, but how? Because now we're in this situation where more people, which is actually really interesting to think about it. We're in this situation now where more people than ever of voting reform, more people than ever about protecting the borders and, stopping migrant crossing. But I also think more people than ever would vote to remain, which would be typically against that. So it's quite an interesting point, to be fair.
Just looking at a poll, it says that. Well, this was done in June, so it's a little bit out of date. And I'm sure there's a more in date one, but this is a YouGov poll, and only 31% of people thought it was the right decision to leave, according to this poll, and 56% of people said it was the wrong decision to leave. I'm sure the difference is there's probably the I don't know category, but the bulk of people, so 56% of the people thought it was wrong to leave, and 31% of people says it was the right decision to leave. So arguably, if you go by that poll, if you did a referendum now, we would be back in the EU. Having said that, all the polls up to the 2016 referendum also said a similar thing. All the bookies and everything had that we would remain. So I would say take that with a pinch of salt. I now think, even though I've voted Remain, I now think that was probably. I actually said at the time that it wouldn't make a difference long term. It would be short term damage, but long term it wouldn't make a massive difference. But the problem is that you're pinning everything on the rest of the EU, which is a very slow moving machine. I don't like regulation, and I felt like having a bonfire regulation might even be a good thing. But it all depends, and this is what Nigel Farage says as well. It all depends on how you handle it.
Yeah.
You can have the tools, but you're not forced to build it. So we have mishandled Brexit massively. So we didn't need to get a load of people from West Africa and Pakistan and all those countries. We didn't need to do that. We didn't need to have all that. There was no obligation or anything like that to get all these people. And we talk about all the time about the illegal people on boats. How we can handle those. So. I think the economic decisions since then can't be at Nigel Farage's feet. They have to be at the government of the times, and ultimately, none of them liked it. So Boris Johnson messed it up. We have had COVID, we have had other issues, but I just think it's the government mishandling it. I actually don't think it's necessarily. I do think there is a teething, or that transition period that probably lasts about 10 years. And so, we're nearly at that point now. But yeah, I don't think it was a bad decision. I don't think it was a good decision. But I do feel like we've handled it terribly.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that. We did handle it terribly. And yeah, I mean,
it's not Nigel Farage's fault.
No, I mean that's something he's always said. In full credit to him, it's something he said on I'm a Celebrity. He said, "Look, at the end of the day, yes, I'm for it because there was going to be benefits, but it's the way they handled it that was wrong." And he's not wrong. He's not lying. Unfortunately, it's just another thing the UK government has fucked up. Whether you're right or left, we cannot deny. It's just been a fuckery, similar to how Labour is now.
You know what I really hate, right? To close this podcast bit off, is I hate it when politicians on Question Time or anything else, right, blame Nigel Farage for the government's mishandling of it. Or when they say to Nigel Farage, you said that we'd be better off. You said we'd have this. You said we'd have that. Hold on, he hasn't been in government.
Yeah,
he's not in government. Right.
In all intents and purposes, he's just a normal guy.
He's just normal guy shouting from the sidelines, but he's not in power. Give the guy some power, right, and then blame him for mishandling that power.
Yeah.
You're blaming someone for something that he has no control of, right? So how can you do that? It's ridiculous. It's like me. I don't know. I could come up with an example, but it's just silly. And it's really misleading as well to the public. And I think that's the worst bit, because there are some idiots that will listen to that and go, "Oh yeah, he did say that. Yeah, oh yeah, but he's not been in power. Oh yeah, that doesn't matter. What, you know."
Yeah.
So you can't blame someone for something that they've got no control of.
Some people have, when they hear a side to politics, they see a clip or whatever, their mind just blanks on the other side, right? And it doesn't matter what you say to them, you're never going to change their mind. And I think with Nigel Farage and Labour, it's one of those situations where a lot of Labour MPs will not think about, anything he says logically, because they hate him so much, and to them he's so much of a fascist that he won't think it. And to other people and to most people that's not the case, but it's just Labour, isn't it? I
do love Middle England,
Middle England,
the quiet voters, I always feel like with England and the UK that there is this. You ever heard of the term a shy Tory? You heard that? So it's when people are, I guess, right wing of thinking, but they're not shouting about it, right? So and that ultimately, I think, is the bulk of the people in the country. The bulk of the country feel and they think a similar sort of way, but it's often the quiet voices that actually have that, so quiet that they're just their thoughts. They're not shouting about it. They're not posting about it. They're not retweeting or anything like that.
Yeah.
They're just thinking about it. So when you look at these polls and everything like that, it's actually add a few more points to the right parties, which is why reform is quite scary, because the polls at the moment are all up for reform, and actually it'll be higher than that. The real figure will be much higher than that, because it's not something that they shout about.
Yeah, interesting. You got any other things? Stories of the week?
Have we got time? Have we got time?
We do one more. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've got one more.
Okay.
This is not the UK. Interesting to talk about. It's similar to what we talked about in the past a little bit. Maybe, I don't know. Australian.
Yes.
So the Australians have banned mobile phones for young people.
Was it mobile phones or social media?
Social media, sorry.
I was going to say, hold on, this is news to me.
Social media, my bad. Social media for young people. Good decision, bad decision. Under 16s, they can't use social media anymore. They can't use Twitter, X, whatever you call it. They can't use Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat.
Good decision, bad decision. Oh, that's an interesting one. I personally think a little bit swayed. I can see both sides of it, but I will give you an opinion. I can see problems with it, but in general, I don't think it's a bad idea.
I don't think it's a bad idea either. I don't know how. I don't know how they're going to police it. I guess when you'll have maybe a lot of small platforms which you won't be able to police.
Yeah.
But once they get to a certain size, then you will be able to police them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's like WhatsApp and stuff. You can still send stuff, I assume. WhatsApp isn't a social media, but you can still do, you can still put up a status and stuff. Yeah. So, at what point does at what point does an app become a social media app, right?
Yeah.
If you look at, so you think about WhatsApp, okay? Now, with WhatsApp, you can create a somewhat of a profile. You can put up a story, like a thing and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's more of a direct message.
Yeah, I know. It's more like that, right? But it still can be used in a certain way. And the same thing like, Messenger for Facebook.
Yeah. No, you're right.
They have split up the apps now, so you can have Facebook and then you've got Messenger for Facebook.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was a bit of a weird move. But are they going to then You can't go on Facebook, but you can go on Messenger. I don't know. I am similar to you. I'm in two minds. And again, you got that. I think it's always difficult for a liberal, to use the old phrase of liberal, which is what most people are nowadays. You want the freedom of everybody to do what they want to do, right? So if they want to use Facebook, they can go on Facebook, right? And if they're a kid, it's down to their parent if they have Facebook or not.
Yeah.
So I think it's the wrong decision, but I think it's got the right thoughts behind it. So I think it could be done in a different way. So I think, for example, you could maybe have a different style of social media. So maybe you ban them all, but allow a regulated one for under 16s. Now, I'm not in favour of regulation, obviously, but when it comes to children, I am. Right. So at the moment, social media is very loosely regulated, and there are some rules, but they are more of the company's rules themselves rather than actually like an actual body and actually regulation. So I think a blanket ban is bad. But you could have, for example, Facebook for kids, right? So Facebook for kids is available for under 16s, and this is what you have to go through to get it. So you have to be you have to be under a certain age. That account has to be made by a parent, and certain ID has to be given to open up one of those accounts. Etc. All that kind of stuff. The amount of the friends and who follows is regulated by the parent. So it basically gives the parent a lot more control over their child's account. And so that's what I believe, because I believe that the parent should be looking after the kids, not the state. But I think the state should enforce or regulate it in a way that gives the power to the parents to be able to do such a thing. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Give the power to the parents, but don't replace the power of the parents.
The problem is with social media.
That's it.
I mean, I grew up in the age of social media where it really blew up. And I was of that young teenage age, 12, 13. That's when it started really taking off. And I will be honest, social media has done a lot of good, but I think it's also done a lot of bad, especially to young people. And having been through...
It's turned off.
Battery died, that's fine. Just use this one. Having been through that kind of... That era, having been kind of cyberbullied and stuff like that, You've
been cyberbullied?
Yeah, when I was younger. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it happens a lot. It happens more. Most
I did, because obviously Facebook came out in it came out a long time ago, but people mainly started using it in 2008, maybe. That I was already an adult at that time, so I didn't have the same thing that you had. We didn't have any of that growing up.
This is what I mean. This is where I have a certain benefit to talk on this topic.
Golden age.
Yeah, it fucking ain't my age. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
ain't my generation. But it's. I could see what they've done. Right, I'm going to give you a weird analogy. They've got cancer in the finger and decided to cut off the arm. It was the right move. Was it a bit drastic? Yes. But do I see the benefit in it? Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to be brutally honest, I would support it if it came over here.
Yeah.
If I had a kid that age.
But I think if you have a yes or no, I would support it. But I would prefer to support a no with regulation. But
the problem is, right, especially when you're young, you're of that age, you're 50, you're 14, you're 15, which is when it gets really bad, right? Your relationship with your parents change. You have your adolescence, puberty starts to hit. You're a bit more against rules. You're a bit more, I can't be asked to deal with that shit. And I just think that, you know, at that point, how the parents could actually be in charge of it and know what's happening. You know, kids are fucking sneaky. Kids are really sneaky. And you need to remember that the parents, you know, assume the parents don't know what's going on. Assume that your kids have grown up, right? There's a new social media out there that they're on. You don't have a fucking clue about it, but you download the app, have a little scroll around. Right? They're still going to know far more than you are about it. They can hide things, they can do all that stuff, even if it's within regulations, right? So it's kind of like it's a difficult one, isn't it? I do agree. I think it is drastic to ban social media for under 16s?
Yeah.
For under 16s, but just another good thing to look forward to.
The thing is as well, like who is it really for? Because I mean, I don't know what age do you get social media anyway. I mean, I've got nieces that are coming up like 8, 9.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a few, and you know, one of them is like 12. So, what age should you get them? I think they've got them around about 8, kind of thing. So, what age are we really talking about? Because when we talk about under 16s, what we're really talking about is like from, I don't know, the age of 8 to 15 then, you know. But anyway, I think that it shouldn't be banned, but okay, in its current form it should be banned, but ultimately they should be allowed to reform and to have a kids version, and that should be regulated and controlled by the parents.
Okay.
As in, you'd be going to your mum and saying, "Mum, I want an Instagram account," you know. But and that's that. So the mum has to do it, right? And the mum then, and you know, the kid can't have it unless it's on the mum's phone, kind of thing, sort of thing. So she can see exactly what's going on, and if the mum deletes it from her phone, then the kid then loses it from their phone.
Yeah, don't disagree.
I mean?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I think it's better. I think the whole thing with social media is a very difficult topic, but. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've got no thing here. I think it is, like you said before, it is the right thing if it was a yes and no situation. But it's not a yes and no situation. It's
exactly.
It's more broad.
I think it's a bit harsh. To be honest, I think there's other ways. These big companies, they've got more than enough money to pump into having Instagram for kids. You know, sort of thing.
Yeah. These companies now rule the world. It used to be
these companies are as big as countries.
Yeah, and bigger.
Yeah, so I think they're missing a trick, to be honest. There, and even if they had to pay or something like that to pay for the regulations to do it, I think the companies would do it. And once you've done that, they could roll it out in the United States and the UK and everywhere else, because I do think it should happen. Yeah. So, yep, I would. That's what I would say. Yeah. Cool. Should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap this one up. All right, then, guys. Well, look, if you enjoyed this, please give us a follow, rating, and we will see you on the next episode.
Cool.
Goodbye.
See you in a bit.